This lesson is part 3 of 3 on real numbers, order, and absolute value. This lesson specifically will have to do with the additive inverse of a number, how we find it, and also with absolute value of a number and how we find that. The additive inverse of x is the number on the number line that's the same distance from 0 as x, but it's going to be opposite in sign. So the example that I give here, that the additive inverse of 7 is negative 7. The additive inverse of negative 4 would be positive 4, because those numbers are the same distance from 0 but just opposite in sign. There is this double negative rule that is used in this section, and I want you to remember that the negative sign literally means opposite. So if I read this, this says the opposite of negative x, which is just x. So absolute value is the distance that a number is from 0. So since it's a distance, it can't be negative. And that's a big misconception. A lot of people think absolute value means the same thing as additive inverse, and it doesn't. So the example down here, the absolute value of negative 2 is 2, because negative 2 is 2 units from 0. But the absolute value of 2 is also 2, because 2 is also 2 units from 0. The absolute value of 2 does not equal negative 2. It does not mean opposite. It means distance. So here are some types of questions you'll be asked in MyLabs Plus that I want to go through with you before I ask you to try some on your own. Absolute value of 5, just going to be 5. This says take the opposite of the absolute value of negative 14. So we're going to start on the inside here. The absolute value of negative 14 is 14, but the negative on the outside says to take the opposite of that. The absolute value of 8 minus 2, 8 minus 2 is 6, and the absolute value of 6 is 6. So the only difference with this last example is that we've got a negative that we've got to bring down. You will be asked to do some true and false questions. So if I've got the absolute value of negative 6 and the absolute value of negative 9, is 6 less than 9? That would be true. And then 13 minus 8 will give us 5. 7 minus 4 gives us 3. The absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of 3 is 3. And is 5 less than 3? Well, no. That would be false. So you'll be asked to do some true-false questions also in your homework.